Okay, welcome everyone to MHPN's July webinar. My name is Xiaohan Smith. I am your moderator today. We are going to hear about a very exciting project, Dreamtroit, a model for the creative reuse of aging facilities. And before we get started, I would like to go over some Zoom logistics. If you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A box as you think of them. All the questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. And the chat box will be used to share links or resources discussed during the webinar. And both the chat and Q&A boxes are located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you don't see them, please wiggle your mouse. If this is your first time attending our webinar, we are the Michigan Historic Preservation Network. We support the sustainability and economic viability of Michigan's historic places through advocacy, education, and direct action. We could not do the work we do without our members and volunteers. If you're not a member yet, please consider joining us at www.mhpn.org. And we have a couple of exciting news to share. Our annual conference in 2026 will be held at the Edsel and Eleanor Ford House, the Visitor Center in Grosse Pointe Shores, Michigan, and it will be from May 7th through May 9th. And our call for abstract portal is open. If you would like to learn more and submit your abstract, please go to our website. I will drop that link in the chat in a bit. And our annual fall benefit will be held at the 4-Star Theater in Grand Rapids. It will be on October 4th. It's a Saturday from 8 to 5:30 p.m. And if you would like to learn more and register, please also go to our website. And if you're here seeking AICP credits, after this webinar, you will log in your credits online using this link. The information is also in the chat box. And if you're seeking AIA credits, you will need to go to this link to take a quiz. There are 10 questions. You can do that throughout the webinar or after the webinar. Just enter the answers and your name and AIA number. Our webinar series are sponsored in part by an award from the Michigan Arts and Culture Council and National Endowment for the Arts. We want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. And it is my great pleasure today to introduce you our two speakers. We will first be hearing from Oren Goldenberg, who's the owner of Dreamtroit. And after Oren's presentation, we will be hearing from Brian Remain, principal at the Kramer Design Group. And after Brian's presentation, we will go to our Q&A section. And now we will turn it over to our speaker, Oren.
Hi, thank you so much. And thanks for having me. Excited to share with you guys Dreamtroit, a project that we began in 2017 and completed in 2023. I'm going to share my screen. Second here. Okay, share. All right. So this project we call it the Lincoln Motor Factory, but it began as the Warren Automotive Facility. It was a one-story building that was constructed in 1908. And over the course of a number of failed automotive projects, in 1917 was sold to Henry Leland, who had left General Motors in Lansing to participate in the war effort of World War I. General Motors had stayed out of the war manufacturing business, and Henry Leland wanted to participate in the fight against fascism. So he moved down to Detroit, bought this facility, and improved it. I believe that's when it became a two-story. Well, anyways, he expanded to be the footprint of the brick and wood section of the building, um, and built the Lincoln aircraft engines, or sorry, the Liberty aircraft engines, to be placed in warplanes to participate in World War I. As most know, not too long after 1917, the war ended, and Henry Leland had this factory, and he began to build the Lincoln automobile. Henry Leland also designed the Cadillac, which was sold to General Motors. So same guy, both American luxury cars. So Lincoln was being produced from 1917 to 1922 at the Holden Street property when Henry Ford purchased the building purchased the company. And Henry Ford expanded the footprint of this factory to include a concrete two-story building that was attached onto it. Just some things to note. So there you can see there's two main buildings here, the brick longer building and the squatter concrete building with the water tower on it. Behind both of those is the rail line that still exists. It's an industrial rail line and Amtrak line to date. I love this picture because you can see all the housing that was built right up against the manufacturing facility. And now in 2023, we were able to reintroduce residential to this property. Moving along, this is so in 1922, when Ford bought it, I believe they moved the Lincoln manufacturing to the, hold on one second, I believe, okay. They moved the Lincoln manufacturing to another facility, and they started to produce the Model A and other.
All right, and then all right, we'll see you Tuesday.
Let me see.
Bye-bye. Beverly, sorry about that. Would you like to schedule? You okay?
Yeah, my son's at a webinar and I just lost him.
Oops.
I
Your
believe my
next
mom
meeting
signed
appointment
into my account, so let me
is
try to
4
mute
months
her.
or 6 months? 4 months?
Debbie, thank you. You got to be on mute. Awesome. And Ford began to produce the Model A's and other automobiles at the factory. And then in World War II, they began to manufacture bombs and other artillery for the World War II efforts. This is the facade in 1923 and what we restored it to in our historic redevelopment project. So in 1948, Henry Ford sold the building to Grosse Point Quality Foods, which was owned by Reuben Shea, nice Jewish family in Michigan, and they converted the facility into a food distribution center. And from 1948, they operated as such until 1978, when my partner Matthew Naimi's parents purchased the property and continued to operate it as a food distribution center known as Metro Grocery. And they operated as such until 1997 or 98 when Matt took over the facility. And as you can see here in this image, the original factory had a bunch of warehouses added onto it. The truck bays, the back of the building was connected to the train line, and additional warehouse expanded to the east. Matt in 2007 created Recycle Here at a time when Detroit did not have a recycling program, with the goal of creating curbside recycling within 10 years. They did it in 8. Um, so these are some of the workers at Recycle Here. It's a free community drop-off recycling program where people bring their recyclables, self-sort, and help, are able to recycle products. We give them music and entertainment and lots of art in return. But it's amazing because even though there is curbside recycling in the city now, we still get about 1,000 visitors each week to recycle. This is the Detroit Symphony Orchestra performing in the recycling center, the old building. This is a motorcycle shop that was on the 2nd floor. If you're curious, we did not have an elevator during those years and would use a high-low and an elevator shaft to get everything up there. And it was quite an endeavor to remove it all prior to the demolition that began in 2019. This is what will become the Lincoln Street Art Park. It's where all those houses used to be against the factory where I showed you in that first image. Those had been demolished through the years, and there were some issues with dumping on this property as Matt owned it. And instead of gating it to try to prevent dumping from happening, Matt elected to create an art park there. It's now known as the Lincoln Street Art Park. The Recycle Center and the Art Park are the 2 main reasons for the historic redevelopment. Matt had music studios in the building and lots of makers, quote unquote maker space. But our goal in the redevelopment was to keep the recycling center open because it's a community hub and an environmental effort in the city, as well as the Lincoln Street Art Park, which is a 24-hour free and open space for people to congregate and be. So that was really the reason for the redevelopment. And as you can see, looming in the background of this photo is Henry Ford Hospital, which is now embarked on their own $3 billion development of the neighborhood. This is the outdoor shipping container classroom that is part of Green Living Science, the environmental nonprofit that Matt created to bring recycling education to Detroit Public Schools. It still exists today and has moved its office back into the renovated building. These are some images from the camp project they do there, and you can see the Lincoln Art Park with a lot of the sculpture and art that was presented there. This is one of the famous ButtCon parties we hosted there. ButtCon is a convention of butts, in case you were wondering. We do all sorts of free events like yoga, but also big dance parties. And we just had a Freak for All, which was a freak bike and art car convention 2 weeks ago at the renovated space. You can see people loved it, so it was worth saving. This is Lincoln Street, where it's housed on an early morning when people are hanging out. So getting into the project and how we came about the redevelopment, you might wonder how we could obtain $30 million to renovate a freak show, for lack of better words, and a recycling center, which does not really produce much income. And the answer really came in the form of housing. We had established a nonprofit, Make Art Work, to try to raise this money initially, but through my experience developing and renovating the downtown synagogue, which is the last synagogue in the city of Detroit, located on Griswold Street in downtown Detroit, it's really hard to get money for nonprofits, especially if they don't have established budgets. So we were met with a mentor named Mark Bennett, who's done a lot of amazing work in the city, and he really presented to us the opportunity to build housing. I'm just going to keep flipping through these as I sort of talk about how we put the capital stack together and whatnot. And these are images from the pre-renovation. You can see that we had to use tarps to collect our water. The building really had not been maintained since like the early 50s and slowly went into disrepair over the years, and the city actually shut it down. In 2017, we negotiated a development agreement to renovate it over an 18-month period. That period got extended to 7.5 years. And I will tell that story. Mark sort of came to us and got us in front of the city and helped us put together a team to present a plan to build make-live units. So make-live units are units you can live in or work in or both, which to us is the true affordability offer in Detroit. I don't know, people might be familiar with the AMI structure, but unfortunately, in Detroit, it's sort of the poorest area within the county of Wayne, in which the average mean income is determined. So a lot of affordability statutes don't actually serve the people of the city who make less than the average median income in the county. So in an attempt to really provide affordability, we found that creating spaces where people could live and work was the true affordability offer. Was the only working bathroom in the facility prior to renovation. Just keep that in mind when you see the finished images. So through working with local CDFIs like Capital Impact Partners and the Affordable Home Leverage Fund through LISC and IFF and Invest Detroit, we were able to put a team together that was interested in helping us preserve the cultural institution of the Recycle Here and of the art park, Main Street Art Park. And to do so, we were going to leverage housing funds, affordable housing funds. So that process began in 2017, and we secured our first pre-development dollars in 2019, in November 2019, and in January 2021, we closed on our construction financing that involved historic tax credits. Since this is a crowd who might appreciate this, our historic tax credits were initially going to be bought by a certain entity that dropped out a month before closing. And we were very lucky to have Emily Kazillo-Smith at the time she was at TCF, get involved in our project last minute and really save our deal by agreeing to take on the historic tax credit. Those tax credits then became owned by Huntington Bank when TCF became Huntington. And then Huntington sold the tax credit in 2022 prior to completion of construction to Impact Credit Partners, who's our current tax credit investor. So just the drama of just the historic tax credit could fill a whole chapter of a book. Closing on construction in January of 2021 was definitely not ideal, as COVID was quite rampant at the time and construction costs were soaring. And we quickly defaulted on our loans by being out of budget on our completion budget. So while we had a slight pause in construction and we were able to close on new market tax credits on top of the historic tax credit structure in January 2022, making this the most complicated real estate transaction in Michigan history per Plant Moran. And towards the end of the slideshow, you will see the organizational chart that my partner Matt got tattooed on his arm because it is so unbearably complex. We're getting close to the end of all of the old photos, but construction began, or as I mentioned, began in 2021, and it met every barrier possible. We had our historic wall that needed to be supported and then demolished around an art park. It was separated from its support structure in June of 2022 during epic windstorm. So yeah, this wall that you see next to the chimney stack that separated from its support beams and needed to be demolished. So that involved then a massive insurance claim, and really an incredible uphill battle of construction. I love this photo because you can sort of see in the back right corner, I don't know if you can see my, no, can't see my cursor, the collapsed roof. And that collapsed roof is the area that we demoed out, restored the west facing wall, and was now the photo that won the vote at the beginning of this seminar as the best photo, because it's become this outdoor courtyard area we call the freezer, because the reason that ceiling collapsed was because of it got converted to be a freezer in the late 40s, early 50s, and when it would thaw, when power would go out, it affected the structure and the roof collapsed in 1998. So it was sitting like that for many, many years as a true danger. Here's another image of it. And our tree that grew on the roof. So like we said, Recycle Here was here and Make Art Work. And this was the start of construction. Green Safe Products is another company that Matt started that was housed in this building alongside Recycle Here, Metro Grocery before that, Grosse Pointe Quality Foods before that. So as construction began, they uncovered all of the old signs, and then it was removed. And this is the Capitol stack on Matt's arm that Mayor Duggan talked about at the Mackinac conference a few years ago. Now this is when demolition started, and I'll move through these. And I can do this maybe as Brian talks, or if there's any questions I should answer now. But you want to go ahead, Brian, and I'll keep flipping through these.
Yeah, I can hear me okay, Oren? Is it come through? Great. Yeah, so Kareem Design Group got involved in late 2019, if I remember the date correctly. And we were first brought in to, and once we cycle through the photos, I'll show you some of the process of getting the building designated. It was not in a historic district. Matt and Oren wanted to use historic tax credits, and so the first step was just getting the facility on the National Register, which was a challenge. As you can see, a lot of the original building was kind of ensconced with a lot of more recent structures that were built. Many of them were in poor condition, including some of the historic structures were in poor condition. And so a lot of it was really kind of taking back the structure to what that historic era, call it from original construction in the early 1900s until, Ford's presence in the building. And to kind of bring that original architecture back, kind of that historic bird's eye photo that Oren showed on the second or third slide. And so that was certainly a big step number one. Big step number two was then dealing with the condition of the building, not only because we had to take down a lot of non-historic additions that had gathered over time, but the structure itself in many locations was in pretty bad condition. You saw lots of holes through the floors, things like that. But they also had a lot of different kinds of construction. You have this timber framed in the original building. Even that kind of changed as you went from floor to floor. And then you also had that the concrete kind of Albert Kahn-esque building. And then as you see here, you have steel frame structures. And so dealing with lots of different types, basically all three kinds of structural typologies that we have here in Michigan. dealing with their condition, lots of surprises, a hidden layer of asbestos material in the wood flooring. All of those things added to the challenges of the project. Looking at this photo here and the supported wall that we had, we were all very hopeful. It was a little bit cross your fingers and wish for the best. And we had a pretty wicked storm that came through. I think it was 60-mile-an-hour winds. And it didn't like blow the wall over, but you couldn't save it after it had kind of warped it and as Oren said, detached it from the temporary supports. And so ultimately that wall had to be reconstructed in its accurate historic form, its original form. So those were all just building condition, I think was just a massive step in this project, was just kind of getting the building condition under wraps. But the cool part, as you saw in that last image, was really kind of bringing back that original shape and form of the building, the alley, as it's called, that slot between the original timber frame and the new concrete frame structure is a pretty great space. Still, was then, and was pretty great even in that quick little moment there where demo occurred. So once we got through that, then it was a question of how do you redesign this thing? How do you put apartments, residential in here? And this building here, the 1917 edition, was, I would say, relatively straightforward. The bays, the window spacing, the depth. We had a double and a quarter right down the middle here, lined up really easily for kind of a typical studio loft. But the original building, the timber frame one, posed some real challenges. This is a great photo, Oren. Stop right here. So, you'd like to align your demising walls up with between windows. You don't want them hitting the middle of windows. But because of the way the structure was done, the columns were spaced equally and the windows were kind of all over the place. So you ended up with conditions like this, where you had columns in front of windows and demising walls that had to deal with both. And it basically meant kind of a shifting window and structure pattern. And I would say that was one of the biggest tricks to laying this plan out, was how do you fit, a regular residential unit between all that. Blake Juilliard, who's on the call actually listening in, did a great job with the design team and kind of working through that. We definitely had a few surprises during construction where we had to kind of make a couple of ad hoc decisions in the field to shift those. But I think what made it doable was, Matt and Oren's vision of having this kind of diverse set of residential studio offerings. Some, as he said, some of the bigger units, you have 2-bedroom units in there, and then you've got all the way to these kind of smaller communal units, which are basically just an open shell with a sink in it and a bathroom, no kitchen. There's shared kitchens that are used for those communal units. And so that allowed us to have a lot of different sizes and to kind of fit all of these different unit types into a building. But as you can start to see, as this thing got cleared out and the windows got reopened, there's some amazing views of New Center, downtown even, huge windows in this building, all of which had to be replaced. You probably saw, maybe if you noticed in some of those early photos pre-demo, I mean, these windows were just kind of boarded up and kind of, entombed inside all the different additions and things like that. Even the ones that were kind of still there on the outside of the building were in pretty poor condition. They'd been kind of foamed in over the years and not really maintained. And so this was definitely a remove and replace with historic replica windows. You saw a few of the factory sash style ones going in there. And it was Quaker Windows. We worked with them, had to do a lot of work because there's a lot of different window types, a lot of different window details. I think maybe 7 rounds of submittal reviews, unfortunately, to get it right. But ultimately, in the end, we had a great end product with the windows. And here you see the building starting to come back together. Put in rebuilt most of the flooring and roofing. I think in the end you can see some of those new joists that were put in and the ceiling above here. But all to be put down then a new floor topping, which was there for fire rating and acoustic protection. Here you can see the demising walls and the corridors being rebuilt. The goal was always to kind of shine the historic fabric through. So leave the timbers exposed, leave these brick walls exposed where they were historically, leave those concrete champagne columns in the 1917 edition. to really bring that all out. This is actually, if you would ask me my favorite, it would have been image number 3 in the photos of the pink and the orange garage doors. I love this section of the building because it was the old recycling center, which had great art in it. And the goal was always to kind of keep that art, the mural art that was in there, the graffiti art inside, but protect it somehow. And we ultimately ended up kind of cutting away, call it 3/4 of that building, but saving a portion of it. And you can see there's those 2 garage doors and that long band of building there along the railroad. This is the back view of it. And so we were able to kind of keep that original structure, even though that is not one of the historic sections of the building, and kind of turn it into something new and interesting. And so now in there you've got a workshop, and it's a pretty great kind of bookend to the site with the historic arm and then the non-historic arm. You can also see in there, this is the Freak Beacon. Matt and Oren are standing in there. Just kind of one of the many art pieces that are made on site, with their kind of cast of characters and friends that inhabit the site. And here's the finished product. I'll talk a little bit. One of the big things we had to deal with in this view was the masonry restoration. That parapet was bowing out pretty considerably. And we rebuilt the whole front for sure. I think we rebuilt most of it. I don't know if we built every inch of that parapet, but the brick detailing, you can see the corbelling in there was rebuilt exactly as it was originally. We even put the terracotta coping back on. Going inside, this is kind of the one area of the building, really the second floor lobby. There's some on the first floor too, as you walk in. This is the head of the building that you see right up against Holden Street. And this was kind of the executive offices, or the offices of the different industrial uses that were there. And so it had sort of an elevated level of finish. You can see the wood trim, plaster walls, plaster ceiling. A lot of that was in pretty good condition. I think Oren would agree it got beat up during construction quite a bit. So this railing you see in front here, I don't know if any of those pickets actually survived, maybe a couple. And so all of them had to be rebuilt by the end of construction. But a lot of the woodwork you see is original. All the door and trim work is original, and it really just needed a good sanding and refinish on it. So kind of redid a lot of that. Here's a typical studio in the original portion of the building. You can see the timbers up above. Really bare bones design, plywood cabinets. Really trying to keep it as bare bones as possible. Here you can see the historic windows. And then this was actually kind of a middle section of the building. It wasn't that original 1908 section. It was renovated for that must have been the Lincoln era. So we saved that as well, and it's now a little kind of bodega style shop on the first floor. I think I'll share my screen really quickly here. There's a few more here. Yeah. So one of the cool things we did, and which was because it was such an important character of the original building, is we actually, and these are all new, but a lot of the original graffiti inside the building was kept. The painted walls, we did not go through and kind of clean everything off. We did clean some. There was some that maybe wasn't right for a residential living, but a lot of the graffiti you see on the interior in particular was kept. And here you can see a finished unit. This is actually kind of a newly built unit in the back building. So this was one of the non-historic portions of the building, but we extended a kind of a enclosed addition into that space. And here you see a lot of that original graffiti. Now we did remove all of the graffiti on the exterior of the building. So that was all, by the standards, non-abrasive removal. Took a lot of effort to get it all off, but we got there, and the exterior of the building is kind of just right, and the interior has all of that original graffiti in it. And here you can see some finished photos of the freezer being used. Pretty sweet sunblast view there. I think, is that the end of it then, Oren? Yeah, I think so. So I'll just show just a couple things here, just to kind of give some perspective and kind of what we had to go through to get everything. Share and this. All right, should be seeing it now. So one of the biggest challenges, like I said, was kind of mapping this thing out and actually getting it on the National Register. And some of that was just kind of trying to find a way to describe what the building is and what its historic components are. And so we mapped it essentially. We labeled all of the structures. So you can see 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are kind of the original 4 structures that were built. 4 is the freezer. 5 was that 1917 concrete structure. But you can see it's been completely engulfed with non-historic structures, 6 through 10. 10 was where the original Recycle Here was located. So we went through this, and then 11 is called the loading dock. That's actually where Recycle Here ended up moving after the project was completed. So we use this diagram to kind of map the buildings for the National Register and then ultimately describe the work in the part 2. And it even with this, it still takes a little bit of orientation to kind of figure it out and get your bearings. But we took out most of building 10 here. We took out we actually cut through portions of building 9, which you'll see in a subsequent drawing. We took out this kind of whole slot here, which was the alley that had been infilled, and then this little shop had been built out in front of it. These little bridges were kept, but all the rest of the structure that was built within was removed. Of course, building 4, the interior that had already collapsed was removed, and the exterior wall was kept. And then building 11 was not in great shape. It needed some roof structural repair, but it was in good enough shape that it was repaired. And like I said, Recycle Here moved out so that then the rest of the project could begin. So just a couple of views. Here's kind of a good graphic showing the plan of the different buildings where demo occurred. You can see this back building here, building 9. We used this as kind of a public space. We couldn't put apartments back here because this is the railroad track. So that was kind of a big requirement that the apartments had to stay away from that. And so instead of, and quite frankly, we didn't have a lot of natural light back here anyways. So what we did is we created natural light. We cut some holes through the second floor and the roof structure. And then as you'll see, we ended up putting some pretty nice apartments back there. Here you can see the roof that was demoed, and ultimately this is that long section where the murals are. That was kept. This whole portion was demoed. This whole section was demoed. Interior of the freezer demoed. Here's the roof demo over that building 9. And then here's the plan that kind of shows. You can see here the freezer. Here's the concentration of apartments on the first floor. The rest of this space here is kind of, this is a club now. This is, like I said, a workshop and some storage area. And then this is Recycle Here on the first floor. And then here's the second floor. You can see, again, concentration of residential units here, but then it spills into the 1917 edition. And then here's those few units that look out into this kind of courtyard area, which, Oren, you've told me has actually been a pretty great space for you all, and has become pretty heavily used for different kinds of events and things.
Yeah, every inch of this building's being used for something.
Here's a view, and actually, I think one thing I was going to show you too was this kind of issue with the windows and the columns. You can see these columns and how they kind of change location with the windows. The windows on either side of the building weren't aligned, and trying to kind of fit these. Here's a column that's maybe somewhat in alignment with the brick. This one is in alignment with the brick, and so trying to kind of squeeze and jigsaw puzzle these units in between it all was definitely an interesting challenge. And the units themselves, as you can see, are nice, straightforward studio apartments. Bathroom, nice kitchen run, closet, and then basically open workspace was kind of the intent, to just let the residents do what they do. Let me see here. I can show some of the communal, which I think are probably better on the first floor. So here are these communal kitchens we made. They're actually just kind of in the corridor. So it becomes kind of this communal meeting space as well. And you can see here these unit D1s. These are these communal units, and they don't even have, I think I misspoke. They don't even have a bathroom. They just have kind of a sort of a laundry sink type space in there. And then the bathrooms are shared. You have these shared bathrooms. No, that's not them. Where are they? Here they are. The shared bathrooms and the communal kitchen are kind of cored together for those users. And then, this is just the elevations kind of showing all the different window types, which I said there was a lot. Oren talked about the first floor and the second floor being built. You can kind of see that. through the window types and how they changed from the first floor and the second floor. Here you can see that kind of historic front portion of the building, and then the freezer wall and the reconstruction of that. I think that ends my portion of the presentation. So I think after this, it's open for questions, right, Xiaohan?
Yeah, and there's a bunch of questions already in the chat that I can just get to if it's helpful.
Yep. I think I will just read the questions so the audience can also hear what the question is, and then either of you can answer.
Go for it.
Yay. So first one is for Oren. Did you look at any other properties before you decided to settle on this one? Why this one? Why this property?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I looked at some places to put an office in and whatnot, but the real reason I got involved with this project is because I became friends with Matt and Doyle, our artist in residence, and Matt and I started throwing a party called Freaks Come Out at Light, which is a sunrise gospel rave movement weekend in the art park. And I started working with him on the nonprofit after that. And when the city shut down the property in June 2017, Matt wasn't really sure what to do, and I approached him about being able to wanting to figure out how to keep our community alive and well there. So it really was not about the building. Every attorney, financial person, mentor I had that I spoke to told me not to do it, other than my dad. Everyone was like, that's ridiculous. So it was really a choice to want to maintain the community and work with peers in doing so.
Okay, so just out of curiosity, what was your background?
I'm a filmmaker.
Oh, wow. So how long did it take you to learn all this?
I'm still learning, but I had great mentorship from Mark Bennett, as I mentioned, and when we started, we had our financial guarantor who guaranteed our tax credit programs. He's a friend of ours who's invested in some of the large art projects that were being produced on the property, and we went to him first, and he asked us for a pro forma, and we said, "What is a pro forma?" So to understand the full curve is now I'm one of the few people who can explain new market tax credits and how they work in a pro forma system. But when we started, I didn't even know what that is. So I really learned by fire. And, because everything went wrong with this project that possibly could have, from COVID to having to restructure his new market, Matt also had a brain tumor removed halfway, once construction started. Our GC went bankrupt during this process. Our wall fell. Really endless challenges. I've really learned a lot.
Oh, wow, that sounds really like a big challenge. Is there any moment that you thought you might just be giving up?
Every moment.
Wow.
I feel like now, after actually, we just received our historic tax credit equity in May, our final installment. So I feel good since then. But up until that point, it was really up in the air every moment.
Wow. Well, that's amazing. So how receptive to your project had the city been?
Like I mentioned, the city shut down the property, so they were happy to see that we wanted to, renovate it. Also, as I said, we probably shouldn't have. So the fact that we were willing to, the city was pretty supportive, verbally. They were the last money in on this project. We didn't actually get any funding from the city till, uh, I'm still trying to get the last installment of it, but they were the last committed party. But we just had support moving through through each of the departments because Detroit and the city in particular and the mayor, they love to see buildings restored. And it is crazy to do so. You really don't see many folks, especially a couple of artists and a garbage man and cultural janitors taking on projects like this. They're generally left to big corporations like Ford and Bedrock. So the city, was excited and worked with us, helpfully every step of the way.
Okay, then who were the first ones that gave you money for this project?
Capital impact partners were, well, no, let me step back. My parents. My parents were the first folks involved. They gave us a pre-development loan that we just paid back earlier this year. And then capital impact partner, while they didn't give us the first money, they were the first ones to give us a letter of interest that brought in IFF. And then we were able to bring in Invest Detroit, IFF, and Invest Detroit gave us our first pre-development loan of $2 million in 2019.
Okay, and so what are some, you have mentioned a little bit, what are the environmental challenges that you have faced?
We are a toxic waste dump. No, being an industrial property, we dealt with all the different types of contamination that come from auto factories, but also from the train line. What we didn't know is a lot of toxins actually, the rain takes them off the trains and onto our property. So we have multiple vapor mitigation systems that are buried underground and vented through the roof that extract the vapor fumes. That's the largest, the biggest issues are in the soil and in the vapor that comes out of that soil. Asbestos, Brian had mentioned asbestos, which we definitely had, but isn't too hard to deal with. And definitely, some lead and whatnot, but those are pretty standard. It's really the soil contamination.
Mhm. Okay, next question. Um, you mentioned the historic tax credits. Is that federal or state?
We got federal. The state was not in place when we closed on this.
Okay. And who were the architectural firm that originally designed those buildings?
I think Rogers and McFarland did.
McFarland.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they did some. It was. I did mention Albert Kahn. Albert Kahn was not the architect of the renovation. It was like his kind of concrete structures that he did. Rogers
I believe
McFarland was involved.
Con Construction constructed which was not him, but it's something. I believe it was Con Construction on the concrete portions, but yeah, Rogers McFarland designed the concrete piece.
Okay. Next question. Where did the airplane come from?
The sky.
Okay. Any story you want to share?
I don't know, just showed up one day.
Oh.
There was a lot of those types of fascinations in the building. I would just say walking through in the beginning was pretty incredible. A little egg was there that you could sit in. Little sort of carts and things all over the place. It was a kind of a special place even before renovation.
The egg is still there.
Yeah.
It's a deprivation chamber, but looks like an egg.
Okay, so next question is about so how long did Plant Moran and how long did it take you to put together the capital stack?
I mean, Clay Moran did did the modeling. It was us and our other lenders that really put the capital stack together. The best thing about Detroit CDFIs like Invest Detroit, Capital Impact Partners, IFF, and LISC is like they bring each other in. When they're committed to a project, they work with the rest of the lending community to make it get over the finish line. But Plant Moran and I are still working on the financials to this date because they are a pro forma is just a projection, and you have to continue to adjust it as operations take hold and different money comes in and tax implications. So we're still working on it.
Mhm. Okay, so you said the total project cost is about 30 million? What's the
I mean,
exact?
technically it's like 32 million, but that involves new market tax credits, which, it's the allocation amount. The total construction costs were about 17.6 million. We had about $4.5 million in soft costs. I mean, I'll tell you, just last year I paid $450,000 in legal fees. We have astronomical asset management fees, and Plant Moran's bill last year was about almost $200,000 just to prepare our taxes and whatnot. So it's a little complicated what the total cost is and where it all goes, because there's such complexity to the capital stack. But yeah, I think the important numbers are the construction cost and
Mhm.
yeah. But yeah, technically it's over a $30 million project.
Okay. And next question. When you applied for the National Register designation, was there pushback over the compromised physical integrity on the property?
I would say no, not really. I was surprised by that, actually. That was one of the concerns you have when a building is in rough condition, does it have the physical integrity that you can actually get it nominated. I mean, I think a lot of the structural failures that were obvious at the time were isolated, holes through a floor here or there. A lot of the things that were discovered were discovered over time, and you didn't necessarily stand out. And there was enough physical integrity in place that you knew what was there. You didn't have to, that those buildings are long, and so there's 1,000 of those timbers, so you knew exactly what it looked like, even if there was a hole in the floor. The freezer was never really a question. It was always just maybe surprising that it was never really questioned. It just was like, yep, it's collapsing and you're going to do this to it. And it was approved from the beginning. I would say the biggest challenge was just, like I said, trying to map out what the historic buildings were, that they were still there, and that when we took away all of the non-historic additions, that they would be what they were originally, or close to it. So less about the physical integrity of them and more just about the physical presence of those original buildings, and how can we bring them back to its historic era. So
Okay. Next question. Could you talk a little bit more about the above ground rainwater storage tank?
Yeah, so the above ground one, it's something we added that just cost us a ton of money, but wasn't required. We have 250,000 gallons buried underneath the parking lot in the art park, which is the right way to manage it. But we wanted to make sure that people, because we're an environmental community space, we wanted folks to see and understand what rainwater catchment looks like. So we we added a $40,000 line item to have above ground storage so that we can use that to water our plants, and really as an example to the rest of the community, because rainwater catchment is a big issue in Detroit. But the majority, that tank that's in the art park, I forget the exact number, but it's like 30,000 gallons, but we have close to 300,000 buried.
Wow. Okay. So which year did the first tenant move in? I mean, besides recycle here.
Yeah, it's important to know Recycle here never closed at all during this entire project, which was its own major feat and a big goal of it. We had our first residential tenants move in July 2023.
And could you talk a little bit more about the building ownership, the
Yeah.
occupancy management?
So technically, our building's owned by our historic tax credit investor. They're the 99% owners for the historic tax credit to work, and for us to be able to sell that, obtain that equity. The management entity of the property is called Bottom 1%, because me and Matt are the bottom 1% of that structure. And it's me and Matt. And then we have our guarantor, who's also has an equity stake, but it's just been mostly me and Matt.
Okay, and how many units are available and how many are occupied today?
So we're at about, I mean, our commercial is 100% occupied. We have full offices and full commercial. We have a Michigan Trumbull Pizza, Recycle Here, Detroitus LLC, which is our artist Doyle's fabrication space. Make Art Work, our nonprofit, has space. Trackside is a speaker. They build speakers for parties. Lincoln Factory operates the indoor venue and manages our outdoor venue. And then of the units we have, we hover between 80 and 85% occupancy. And again, the biggest issue being income verification. The design, we've had over close to 300 applicants at this point for the 76 units, but due to limitations around who can live there, just based on their income and sort of pairing the right income level with the right unit, it's hard to fill.
Okay, thank you. Could you talk more about the event space? Is that something that groups can rent and hold an event there?
Yeah, so the indoor space is run by Lincoln Factory. That's available for rent. The patio and the freezer are also available for rent. But then the art park is a free space. You can pull up there and really do whatever you want there, as long as you're not selling anything or not branding anything. If it's a free and open event without any of those things, then you can use the art park as you see fit.
Cool. How many people can be at that event space? Like 100? Like how many
No.
people?
We can over 5,000 people to be on the property at one event.
Wow, cool.
Especially when you connect our 4 different spaces between Lincoln Factory and the 2 patio spaces and the freezer. We have big capacity.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Okay, so have you seen it impacting the surrounding neighborhood?
No. Sorry for the quip. Henry Ford is undergoing a massive construction project, and really most of our neighboring buildings have been vacant for a long time, and due to asking prices are not getting sold or redeveloped. And I've seen a bunch of different entities come and try to redevelop them, and it's fair to say this is not a money-making endeavor that we've partaken in, and I don't think most folks are interested in such an endeavor. So the majority of our neighborhood has remained vacant. Other than, our partners Marble Bar, who run Lincoln Factory, they opened in 2015 down the street from us. They've been amazing partners, and that's why we wanted them to be a part of our development as well. So that's our big partner there on our block. We're excited for Motown to open eventually, and for the hospital to open.
So next question, how many square feet is a whole property in the building?
So the building was 160,000 square feet. We demoed 60,000 of it, so it's about 100,000 square feet now, and it's a 3.7 acre parcel.
Okay, I think we're getting to the end of the presentation and the question. Maybe one last question. So, are you planning on doing another project like this?
We will see.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. Oren and Brian, thank you both for your time and sharing your knowledge with us about this amazing project. And just thank you everybody for participating. This webinar is being recorded. You will be able to access the recording in a few days. You will receive an email when it is available. And please check our website for our upcoming webinars and events. And if you have any questions regarding the webinar or AIA credits, AICP credits, please feel free to let me know. And thank you so much. Thank you everybody for participating, and hope you all have a wonderful day. Hope to see you next time.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for organizing.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.